Don't adjust your earballs, everybody. It is a new week, and it is a new episode of Breaking Down Security. I am Bryan Brake. Mr. Betcher is with me this week.
Howdy, y'all. I'm from Texas.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, we're going to do that. Mr. Betcher might have had some adult libations earlier. He was supposed to have thawed out by now, but yeah.
Well, this is a last-minute podcast, right?
Yeah, that is a true statement.
And I thought we were going on the weekend, but hey, whatever.
Right. So the voice that you don't hear is Miss Berlin again. I found out that she had some. Are you serious? What
happened?
It's a freaking lawnmower man across the street. It's a Wednesday night. Anyway, I apologize to my podcast listeners. Ms. Berlin had her knee surgery this within the last few days, so she is hopped up on some really, really nasty meds and painkillers and stuff, and she sends her regards. She's not able to make it this week, so we're just, if she's listening, we're thinking of you. Get better. You'll be back on next week, and we're not going to dock your pay. It's cool. So it's, got that going for you. Yeah.
We got sick time.
Right. I don't think that was in the collective bargaining agreement. So no. No.
Well, speaking of being sick.
Okay.
Our first article here.
Well, wait. I gotta talk about B-Side Springfield first.
Oh. Yeah. In the show notes?
It's at the very top. So I spoke at B-Side Springfield, Missouri. It's the town I used to live in before I joined the Navy and became an InfoSec person. So I gave a talk on building community in InfoSec, and it was actually more of a generic talk about building community. But everybody got positive feedback on it. People seem to have enjoyed it. Met a lot of people. Including JB, one of our people in our Slack channel. He also runs our European book club, and I found out some good news that he may be leaving Germany, so he'll no longer be in the European area for much longer.
That's good news?
Yeah, he got a job, so he's moving back to the States.
Oh, okay.
I won't tell you where or with whom, because I don't think it's completely official yet, so we'll find out. But yeah, congratulations to him, and we're really looking forward to seeing him again next year. And yeah, a lot of folks in the area there, Springfield, Missouri. It's definitely a thriving InfoSec community. There was 150-ish people there. So, I mean, that's a second year. So that's a decent sized B-Sides. So very, very happy, very impressed about it was a very well run conference. They had a Lockpick Village and a CTF and, some really great prizes. The grand prize was that Net Wars Continuous prize, so it was like a $3,000 value. They had several giveaways of No Starch press books, so that was excellent. So the Sans folks and No Starch was helping them out, and the talks were really good. I mean, there was I'm not saying that my talk was good. The other talks were good. Miss Sunny was there. Miss Sunny Ware, who's done classes for us on web application pen testing. She gave a great talk on getting security, sneaking some security inside of your CI/CD models there. And a lot of folks, there was for several technical talks, people like Killian Ditch was there talking about, different types of shells, like, what is his favorite shell? So he was talking about different types of shells, and so it was really great. I wish they had recorded those, but maybe they'll do that again next year. So the talks were not recorded, so you won't be able to see my talk. I may release the slides. I had some not show notes, but like slide notes in there for speaker stuff. But yeah, it was really fantastic. It was just the right. What's that?
Did you get nervous?
Yeah, because I was like the first talk of the day, so it was like I couldn't, have anything to drink that would calm me. So, I did like everyone else and had 2 cups of coffee before I got on. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, my mama was there. So the organizers loved the fact that my mama was there. So she stayed for all the talk. She said she didn't understand a lot of it, but she, has a better understanding of what my job entails or what my industry is like now. So it was very interesting. Yeah. So before we get started on our news/topic of the week, Mr. Betcher, what about malware? How are we doing with malware? Have you seen anything interesting in the last couple of weeks?
Interesting? No. I mean, I've read a few articles. Okay, so you put me on the spot. I don't recall any new malwares that we've had to put in a lab and say, oh, geez, what does this thing do?
Is that because you found all of them already and there's nothing new?
We found quite a bit. We have a lot of preventative measures in place, so we're not getting them as regularly as we were before.
So we
went from nothing when we got there to detection,
right?
And then we were able to build up to prevention.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So you're mentioning 2 of the 3 controls. You have preventative, detection, and what's the third one? It's like investigative or something. But yeah, so it's interesting how the detection lends itself to the prevention, which is logical. Which is logical. So you've got all the prevention in place, and that reduces the number of malware types that can infect your systems.
Right.
And how are you pushing out? Are you pushing out changes to the systems themselves, or are you putting those preventative measures in an IDS, or are you doing a little of both?
It's a combination. I mean, we had to get in the detections first,
right?
And then we could see what was going on in the environment, make a case for either getting some tools in place or implementing what we already had and just flipping switches, things like that, to turn on prevention. And in some cases, we would go to, say, the product owner, and we would say, hey, we're seeing X, Y, and Z. You probably don't want that. Here's the data to prove it, and here's what it would be if we turned on prevention for you. Your data load would be less, your productivity would increase, et cetera, et cetera. We'd make that case, right? And then we would get them to agree, or they would agree to say, you know what, let's turn on these security tools. I know it's a risk, but I think the benefit of turning them on outweigh the risks. So if you present it with that kind of data, they're more likely to be on board with some of the changes you make. Otherwise, it's all about uptime.
Right. Well,
I don't want my junk crashing because we're trying to prevent something that doesn't exist. If it does exist and you show them it exists, then they're more likely to be on board.
Yeah.
So you build those relationships along the way.
Right. So you've taken these various indicators of compromise, or after something's been done, and you're taking it and making preventative measures. This sounds a lot like, and I hate to keep going back to our Slack, but somebody had asked for a threat hunting channel this week, and I was like, I don't know why I would, why that would be a good thing to have. And their answer was something like, well, if we're hunting malware, we're the blue team, and this is not necessarily a blue team thing. Could also be red team. We're wanting to look for indicators of compromise. So, this helps us, understand what other people are going through. So I created it for them, and they're working out various things inside of our Slack right now in the threat hunting channels. So I'm very interested in seeing what they do with it. Proactively searching the network for a threat or intrusion. Yeah, that's what they put the channel purpose was. So a couple of the guys in there are actually thinking about setting up a monthly information sharing type thing. So apparently we're getting into the ISAC region of sharing of information. So I find that interesting if we can make it work. So yeah. So
That's cool. I'm looking for it right now.
yeah, it's called threat hunting. Yeah.
When was this?
I put it up, I don't know, a couple days ago. Because, one of the things I did with community building talk was I was like, you got to follow like the improv method. You can't say no to somebody. So you kind of need to say yes and then figure out if it's going to be viable and let them find out if it's going to be viable or not. Sometimes, you need to steer them in certain directions, but you don't always need to, say no. Especially if it's, sounds even half nice. So, yeah, we've got 17 people in there now, but there's going to be a lot more people, I would think, helping out with this. They're going to do a monthly.
I'm number 17. So,
okay, cool.
Threat hunting, you didn't hear about it that much.
Yeah.
I remember on my interview with Ed Scotus, he had mentioned it, and I had not heard that before.
Right.
He mentioned it to me for the first time hearing it. He said, we got to make defending networks cool, right? So we're calling them or we're calling them hunters,
right?
Right. We got the pen testers or the attackers, and then we have the hunters.
Yeah.
So that was the first I've heard of it, and that was what our 10th or 15th episode ever,
right?
And it's on the upswing, big time. Companies are starting to realize that, they need somebody who's good at finding these threats in the environment.
Right.
Somebody who knows what to look for and how to define scope and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think incident response, it's another branch, right, of incident response.
Sure.
It's the hunt team or defer.
Well, so okay, if that's the case, and this is part of the DFIR section, this would be under the P in the pickerel area, PICERL, which is preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, lessons learned. So this would be under the preparation and identification phases, because you're proactively looking and preparing for an infection, and you're identifying anything that comes up as, whether or not it's malicious or not.
Well, it has something to do with all of them, though, too.
Sure. But it's the steps of an incident response. So if you identify something that's on your network as malicious, then you roll incident response. You roll,
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So,
cool.
yes, it is. It has a lot to do with. You really don't know what's out there, but you're skilled at looking for what could be.
Right. Exactly.
So threat hunting is starting to, and in fact, SANS has a conference now called the Threat Hunting Summit.
Really?
I don't know if it's the second one that they've ever had, and that's in New Orleans this year, and I'll be at that.
Oh, damn! Why don't you tell me these things? Threat Hunting Conference.
So Michael's going to do a talk on PowerShell.
SANS.
And they have short talks. They're like 20 minutes, something like that.
Son of a crap. Look at that. 46-day conference.
So SANS is thoroughly on board with the hunting.
Well, that's
They have been for a couple of years.
That's
at least.
September the 6th through the 13th. Okay. So you and Mr. Betcher, or you and Mr. Goff are going to be there.
Right. I think it's a 2-day conference, and then, of course, they have classes.
Yeah.
So I'll be at the conference, not the classes.
Right. GCIH is going to be there. Continuous monitoring and security ops. GMON. GCFA, which makes sense. Alyssa Torres is going to be doing memory forensics. Advanced network forensics 572, threat hunting, analysis and incident response. Philip Hagen's going to be running that one. GNFA, cyber threat intelligence and reverse engineering, cyber forensics 610. Wow, that's a pretty decent one. And
so
then
hunting is cool, I guess, and companies are hiring hunters.
Right.
So first time I've seen we're hiring threat hunters, and companies are saying, well, we need 4 threat hunters.
Right.
Wow.
Well, okay. So it's not red team. It's because they're actually attempting to get into things. It's not blue team because they would be defending against that. It's not really purple team either. So it would be like part of the incident response group.
Yeah. They would, as you said, they are doing threat hunters do a lot of preparation.
Right.
And they do a lot of research too.
Right.
So if a new blog post comes out and then it says, hey, these attackers put XYZ in the registry, and then you're going, okay, well, I can build an alert for that, and I can go hunt in the environment for that. I've already built the infrastructure to do that effectively. Right. So let me build my signature, my IOC, whatever it is. And then Mandiant that has their IOC builder tool. You do something like that. Yeah. And you query the entire enterprise for that particular new artifact,
right,
of an attack.
I would imagine things like we were doing the book club and we were talking about Wireshark and such, and some of the new functionality in Wireshark is you take the list of in your PCAP you can make firewall rule sets that can be used to block malicious traffic. Almost immediately based on what, firewall group you have, whether it's Cisco or pfSense or PF or, Blue Coat or whatever it is you're using. Tall stick. That's a joke.
I mean, to give you an example, Michael and I were debating recently on detecting lateral movement. And I made the case, well, first of all, let's say I need to investigate machine X. Well, machine X is on this particular VLAN, right? So I got to find out what the subnet mask is. I got to find out what its IP address is, and I calculate all the other computers on that network.
Right. And
if any one computer is talking to the other computer on that same network, that's lateral movement. That should not happen.
Right.
In a well-structured network, you should never see that.
Right.
And so that would be an indicator. That would be something to go look at. Now, maybe somebody put a test server on the same network as their workstations,
right?
Which would not be a good architecture, but you might have to whitelist that or move that server to some other network so that you don't have that lateral movement all the time. It's not good practice to have servers and workstations on the same network, but I understand that some organizations have to do that for whatever reason, or they're too small to have the north-south network going through firewalls or other router devices, things like that. And that's fine. You have to account for that. Maybe it's impossible to detect lateral movement in that way, but it's an easy way to do it. If one IP talks to another and they meet that criteria, send an alert.
Right. Well, I mean, this is where things like the security controls, the top 20 security controls are very helpful. You need to have documentation to help you understand where things are, what they're doing, and threat modeling is very helpful for this too, because it's going to, and I'm actually doing some tonight with some engineers in Bangalore for work. But the problem is that a lot of organizations still don't have up-to-date data flow diagrams. They don't have network diagrams. They still don't know where all their stuff is. And threat modeling can often help with certain things. Help you understand the attack surfaces and, what an attacker might be able to pivot through to get access to databases or what have you, which, is your lateral movement thing. If you know which services are being able to connect between A and B, then you can more easily understand, well, I've got NFS version 1 on here. Well, that's a problem all by itself. Or, I've got, SSH connections that are persistent, so people can tunnel through that over basically any port, and they can SSH through persistent connection or, making it easy. So you figuring out your attack surface when you're threat modeling can also help finding these, active, what do you say? Positively searching networks for threats or intrusions. So, you get infected and you should already know how lateral movement is going to be able to occur in your environment.
Right. So now, Michael made the case. Well, what if Bob's an admin and he needs to move to Joe's laptop? Well, my thought is Bob should be doing that from a trusted host, not from one laptop to another laptop.
Right.
Lateral movement, it shouldn't be allowed. And if it is captured somewhere, then either that shouldn't happen with host-based firewalls, or it should be alerted on.
Right.
Or the attempt, it should be blocked. And here's from moving from detection to prevention. Not only do you detect it at first, but then you could prevent it and alert, right?
Yeah.
On the attempt of lateral movement. So then you might need to investigate Bob's machine, or if for some reason Bob has to go from one laptop to another, then maybe you have to make an exception for Bob, and then Bob's machine becomes high risk because he's whitelisted out of the lateral movement alerting, and you got a red flag there.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see. Not
so
only
those are the kinds of things you think about, right?
Right.
When you're a threat hunter, you think about these things, okay? And you move. You can go through the attack matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I got lateral movement covered. What's next? Okay, persistence. What do I need to do about persistence? And you start thinking about these scenarios, and saying, okay, how can I get persistence covered throughout the entire enterprise, right?
Yeah, and with your lateral movement, you were talking about Bob, the admin. Bob's going to be a high value asset. Anything that he does is going to have the ability to move laterally. So if he logs in on somebody's computer to do something as an admin, the infected machine could use his credentials or use his access to gain access to other things. Conversely, if Joe, who's not an admin, logs into Bob, the admin's computer, Joe may not have admin rights. What my point was is you're classifying. You have to classify accounts, you have to classify people, and you have to classify machines, low, medium, and high. And if everything lines up correctly, you could have a really bad day depending on what kind of machine it is, because some machines are actually used for other things. You have web server, so if Bob the admin logs in on there with his admin accounts regularly, that could be a bad thing. Credentials can be harvested right out of memory. If Joe does it, you may get a local account or a local user, which can't escalate necessarily. So yeah, those are other things you have to think about. All the lateral movement in the world may not help you if Bob the admin doesn't log in on there. So you may have to. Bad guys would bide their time and wait for Bob the admin to log in on that box.
Yeah, and we talked about this last time. You're speaking about analytics, right? Bob normally logs into these 50 machines, but then he steps outside of that. Things like guard duty for AWS, take a look at that and say, well, Bob's never done this before. Maybe you should know about this. And maybe you should check a box to say, oh, yeah, that's fine. And I'll incorporate that rule.
Right.
But then if he steps outside of those bounds again, I'll alert you. And then you can either check the box or investigate.
That sounds like one of the talks that was at B-Sides Springfield. Actually, wow! Now that you've brought it up like that, so it was a vendor, and it was not a vendor talk. He was he worked for a company that sold a CASB system, which is CASB.
Is that the CASB?
Cloud Access Security Broker. It's a cloud access security broker. So the idea is that he was discussing how to use this, and also a UEBA, which is baselining user activity and behavior. So he was saying, from the DoD model, they're starting to look at users, and they have like a score that they have based on how shady they're doing right now. So if Joe, like you said, logs into 50 machines and that's his normal duty every day, he's a normal. But all of a sudden, if he starts going over to a different network and logging in, his score goes up. And at a certain point, a threshold is reached and they start limiting the access to things on the network. Now, as a user, if I notice that I can't access something all of a sudden, I'm going to be like, WTF. I can't get to this. I'd be calling admins or whatever. And then maybe the admins don't even know why that I can't no longer check email, or, my mapped drives are gone, or I can't SSH to a specific box. And then they set it at a certain other threshold, assuming that, Joe's, continuing to try to do naughty stuff, which if I was locked out initially, I would probably continue trying to do naughty stuff to attempt to, and I wouldn't even know I'm doing it. But
well, see, here's the point. If it weren't you, if it were somebody impersonating you, and either you lost your access and you called the help desk, or the help desk called you because they got an alert.
Right.
In either case, somebody would know that something's amiss.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, and I guess that makes sense. Having those kind of analytics would be great. The way he delivered it, though, it didn't strike me as being the way it needed to be done. There needed to be a better way of maybe. I'm a person who's all or nothing. So if I see something weird going on, I would probably shut everything down, shut it all down now, instead of just, slowly restricting the person, because that's coming from from a blue team or a vulnerability management side. If it's outside of the norm, then there's probably a nefarious reason for it, whether it be insider threat or external threat. So
yeah, and if it's just barely outside the norm, maybe it's okay. But if I'm thinking a typical hack, you're going to see something that far exceeds
right
normal,
right, attempting to
so far out there that it's like a I can't think of an analogy, but it's there as bright as the sun, right?
Well, it'd be like Joe, non-admin guy, logging into a box, which he normally has access to, but he doesn't have sudo rights. So the first thing he does when he gets in there is he's just trying to spam sudo, or he's trying to SU to different user accounts. That's not something you would normally do. I would imagine you would, swim in your own lane to use a parlance. So if he's trying to SU to root and he doesn't necessarily have access to root, he shouldn't have access to root on that box. That could be one of the flags that would be like, hey, why is he doing that? He should know better. So we're going to start restricting him for a while, and maybe he does it enough. And then all of a sudden, oh, wow, he gained escalated privileges. That's bad. We probably should lock his account. I could understand that.
And a lot smarter people than us, when it comes to math, have thought through this. They're able to, they're able to accelerate whatever's going on and formulate some calculation to where it's beyond belief that this could happen.
Right.
Normal.
Right. And there's, that's where the I think the CASB system comes in, where the security broker is, it's policy enforcement. So, you're locking out Joe's account, and then you may isolate the box that he's on from the network, depending on, what's involved there. Or, you may take additional steps to make sure that, he's isolated from the data on that system. So it could be as granular as you want it to be.
Some people call it AI, but it's, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know enough about that area to call it that. Probably not. We had a guest on, a few months ago talking about it. Was it Allison Miller?
Yeah.
Talking about that. So,
that sounds familiar. Yep. So, well, this show went completely different direction than I thought. Yeah, I mean, we had a news story about, healthcare, companies side channeling you and finding information to help raise your insurance rates. And
we can talk about that next time if you want. We've gone 30 minutes?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. So I'm cool with that. And then we had another thing that Netflix has released a tool. So we can definitely talk about those next week if Ms. Berlin isn't here. Mr. Betcher, how would people find you to talk about the SANS conference that you might be going to in September? Yes. The talk that Mr. Goff has been accepted to give, and how would they get a hold of you and talk about LogMD or whatever it is they would?
Well, you could show up there and I'll be there. I'll also be at DerbyCon.
Yes, we're going to be at the Derbies. Yes,
we're going to be at the Derbies. You can't miss us. Just look for the booth. Then I'll be at BSides Vegas, FCon, and maybe Black Hat. So if you're at any of those, come talk to me.
Big pimpin'.
Or DM me on Twitter.
Right.
Right. If you're there, or if you just have a question on the hunting of the threats, give me a DM on Twitter. My handle is at Betcherpwned, BOETTCHERPWNED, or go to log-md.com.
Nice. All right. So Ms. Berlin, we miss you, and you can contact her and send her well wishes on Twitter. She's at InfoSister. INFOSYSTIR, and she would love to see some get well wishes when she's not on the heavy meds. So, the knee is a complicated joint, and it's a pain in the ass. As a matter of fact, she's got to drive to Vegas for Black Hat and DEF CON. So,
you can't fly.
No, she can't fly. I guess it's a blood clot thing. They're worried about the blood clots forming in her legs or whatever, which would cause issues. So if you're in Ohio and you are not, crazy or whatever, and you need a, ride to DEF CON or Black Hat, I'm sure she would love the carpool option available for that. So
driving by herself?
God, I hope not. She said she was trying to find some people. So if you're not crazy, hit us up on our Slack, which, we're on our Slack. It's very active. Get on it. It's a very, very active community. You can DM us on the podcast Twitter. You can at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC, or you can just email bds.podcast@gmail.com and ask for an invite. So, Miss Megan Roddy.
Yes.
Roddy. Oh, God, I hate that. Yeah, Megan Roddy. She's one of our moderators. She gets to them a lot faster than I do on Twitter these days, invites and such. So she'll definitely hook you up. We're doing a lot on the Slack. We've got our book club. We've got a summer reading program that's next week. So if you join up on Tuesday night, we'll have a book club. And there's a book that we're reading. I forget what the name of the book is, but you'll have to come in and check it out. CTF Club's going on. We're running through some Hack the Box instances. We actually have a private lab that some of the Hack the Box mods have set up for us, so specifically for our group to be able to run through. So rank has just privileges. So if you are interested in getting involved with the Hack the Box crew or the BrakeSec Hack the Box crew, come and join us. So Ms. Berlin set up a T-shirt shop. We have a T-shirt shop at T-Pub something. You can go and get a shirt. Miss Wendy Knox Everett, who we've had on the show, also works with me over at Leviathan, had bought a shirt. So she wore it on Tuesday. She's like, look at it. It's nice. And I was like, oh, okay. She did say the ladies' sizes do run a little small. So she had a large, and she said, I probably should have gotten an extra large. So if you're used to wearing a large ladies' shirt or, probably order 1 or 2 sizes larger, just so it doesn't fit like a sausage casing. So she was fine, but yeah, she said she would have liked it to be a little more roomy. So so you can follow me on Twitter, Bryan Brake, BRYANBRAKE, and we have a Patreon. If you found value in us talking about CASBs and malwares and lateral movement and hunting of the threats, please feel free to leave us a little something over there that goes to hosting the podcast and what have you. So I really wished I would have submitted a talk somewhere else. I don't know if there's any other CFPs going on. I don't even know if it's worth doing the community talk elsewhere. If you have a B-sides or something that you'd like to hear that talk at, I guess I could come and do it. I just have to, submit like everyone else. So if you know of any CFPs or you'd like me to try to put my paper in for consideration, please let me know. So, all right, we're done this week. Mr. Betcher, it's been a pleasure as always, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's it for Breaking Down Security this week. Have a great week. Be nice to one another. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.